morning, everybody. Bonjour. My name is Alberto Brandolini, coming from Italy, working for a small company called Alberto Chapter. That's what I do. And in general, the reason why I'm here has to do with the fact that I like changing things. Actually, it's more than I like changing things. I'm probably a compulsive improver. I like adding spices. I like adding cheese on top of pasta, of course, but I also like adding extra spices on top of other food. I like making modifiers. I see things, I like improving them. And yes, that's why I ended up being a consultant, getting paid for my obsession. The way I like changing software and organization has to do with this little strategy, which is simple. Put all the key people in the same room and have them build an event-based model of the whole business. This way, we see the different competing narratives, and we discover that nobody knows the whole story. We discover frictions, we find boundaries, and many other things. But it's a big activity, involves a lot of people, involves creating a big model of the behavior of an entire organization. And of course, it could be applied to small processes and smaller scope as well. But the real fun is when we try to see the whole thing end to end. Why this? It actually was an idea that was born inside the software world, and it was the first approach was related to discover requirements in a way that was learning friendly. Instead of reading boring specification that we're never gonna actually finish reading, we get asleep in the process, we don't learn the business by specification. It's a better way to learn about the business domain by trying to solve the business problem, understanding the puzzle, understanding the relationship between the department, the low requirements, the mandatory dependencies between areas, the different needs. We want to see all of this so that we can be a good software solution for this. And during the workshop, what we see, just like we learn a lot, everybody does, we see business stakeholder as real human being. And we see smiles, we realize that we have to solve problems and we will not make stupid decisions later on in the process. And also, we see boundaries, we see some information which is really good for the architecture. But we apply the same ideas to the organization. One of the funny things that we discovered in the process, we started with assuming that the business knows the business, after people need just to learn the business. And this assumption turned out to be flawed, because the moment we started visualizing the system with the level of detail and precision we needed to actually make good software for it, we realized that the business didn't actually know the business that well. And there were gray areas, there were zones that were actually needed. And most of the time, the business was actually learning something about themselves every single time. It actually happened yesterday too. So some of the things that we can do at the business impact, I love kickstarting change. I love understanding what is the current state of a large complex system. And yes, now what can we do on this? Where can we apply changes and so on? Visualizing the current state, or envisioning the new state, kicking out a startup, launching a new business line, something like this. Removing blockers, analyzing a current state of the business, realizing that we have a necessary friction or long-lasting friction that could have a solution, and also enabling people to trigger change. Why don't you change this? Why don't you try something different? Oh yes, that's something we can do. I love doing this. And it's also a quick way to design or redesign business processes. And the main reason why this is actually great, because you see the whole thing, and the big hotspot here, just like knowledge in the enterprise, is it's not consolidated, it's actually fragmented. This is a map of a stereotypical distribution of knowledge in the enterprise, and doesn't need to be explained. Like, there's a place of very good expertise. People are usually very good inside their own silo, but you might have second-hand knowledge of a different problem, or you might have a conflicting views between the person on the top and the person on the floor, and the person on the floor has more fresher information, but the person on the top sees more in the strategy, and they might not see the same reality at the same moment, or with the same language. So this knowledge is messy. Trying to linearize it is the only way to make actual changes, because if we are not talking about the same thing, we are not going to change the same thing. But in general, by trying to see the world in this way, we bump into, the biggest blocker for evolution, because the change, that was something that we wanted to happen, and we discovered something interesting, like that the main reason for change not actually happening in organization was sometimes cultural, like a culture of fear and punishment. Of course, you're not going to change anything, but even when the culture was actually right, when the management was trying to empower people and go for change, rewarding experiments and everything that you could put on a plate, change was still not happening because of this little thing. And this little thing is people are afraid of breaking invisible things. Why this is relevant? This is relevant, one, because this is actually backed by science. And one of the main reasons is it has been studied that people facing a problem are strongly biased towards choosing a solution that involves adding one more piece to the puzzle, or many more pieces, instead of removing one, even when the removing one piece was the obvious solution. And the numbers are towards, let's add one more thing, let's write one more law, let's add one more rule. This is how we grow complexity and taking things away, and also source code and things. We are biased towards adding stuff, and this is tricky. The main reason, psychologically for me, has to do with the fact that, well, we are afraid of removing because maybe things are there for a reason. But let me give you a couple of stereotypes of two extreme organizations. In a startup, a small company founded a few years ago, the founders are still in the company. They know the system end to end, maybe not in detail. They might get into other activities from the early days, but they still understand the whole thing end to end because they built it. And they built it out of experiments. They could change things quickly. If we need to do pivoting, changing of direction, we can still have a few people in a room and design some steering quickly. At the other end of the spectrum is the bank. It doesn't have to be a bank. I'm just choosing a bank because they tend to be very old organization. They existed generation before you were hired. Which means you were hired, the company existed before you, okay, that's obvious, but you can never get the confidence of saying, like, I know everything that happens in this organization. I know every single step of the business. No, you're never gonna be in a room and with somebody telling you, this is what we do, this, and there's nothing more. Well, banks, they do have secrets, but sometimes it's not even secret. It's the gray zone that maybe can be there. Maybe some people told you, maybe they forgot to mention, maybe you don't know, maybe you just never talk with the person in that office at the end of the corridor. And the result is just like, well, change doesn't happen so often in places like this. Once again, people are afraid of invisible things, and the reason is, oh, maybe this has to be there for a reason. And okay, my solution, just make everything visible. I build a model with all the people that know something about it, and then I feel like, wow, we can change something. We can replace this stack with a different service, and nothing would fall apart because I see everything end to end, and changes become easy. I have the people in the room. They can see if there is some connection that gets lost, if you need to make some correction. We can see this, and this enables confidence. That's great. Another reason why change might not happen in organization, of course, has to do with risk and opportunities. So let's be honest, that was not the only reason. In the startup, experiments can open huge opportunity, so the upside is great. And the downside, oh, come on, it's still a small business. So we have 3 customers. If we make a mistake, we're losing 2, maybe 3 of them, but it's not big money anyway. And so very little to lose, a lot to gain. You play experiments. The bank is in the upside situation. Little upside because the market is mature, and failed experiment, everybody knows how much money you made somebody lose on a failed experiment. So let's wait. Let's wait to have a cleaner strategy. I don't want to be the one risking. Okay, that was the type of game we were playing. And I think it sounded kind of naive because we all know what happened last year. We have this. I'm not going to start complaining about it. We are slowly getting out, but it happened, and they didn't hit all the business evenly. Factories are not service companies, are not restaurants, are not hospitals. And so I'm talking not about the generic company organization. I'm talking mostly about those service companies where office was the working space. And the factories, restaurants, and other places, they have completely different problems. So now we're in my space. And we were in the service business. And of course, everybody started reading remote. We actually read it 2 years before. We were already remote. When the pandemic hit, our organization was already organized for remote. So yeah, apparently it was not going to be a big deal. So we had the basic stuff sorted out, like people had decent laptop of internet speed. Maybe not everybody had a quiet room, but we had good microphones, headphones, had good screen size. The basic was in place. And we already had all the coordination software needed to perform as a remote organization. So actually nothing big happened. And of course, other need for precision, remote is not like working from home. I mean, remote, it just enabled the Starbucks type of experience, and then we were forced to stay home, which is slightly different. Not a big deal. I need to make sure I'm not making a mistake. Our arrangement before getting to this work from home mandatory state, it was already that most of the activities were performed remotely. Our delivery, especially mine, required travel. I was hopping from country to country every 3-4 weeks per month, depending on how lucky I was. And of course, we had some hybrid days when people could be in the office or not being in the office. Plus, and that was core to our system, a few strategic days where everyone is present for global retrospectives, days together with our partners, evolving, designing strategies, and that was actually really, really important for us. But talking about how the pandemic hit our business, this is where we were. And it was kind of horrible because we were doing public trainings and that was illegal. Private trainings were illegal too. And workshop consulting, come on, 30 people in the same room, no distancing, no mask, and all of this. That was, of course, no way to deliver this, and organizing events and meetups and conferences wiped away. Software development, that was our, we didn't put all the eggs in one basket, and then it got flatlined too because, well, the customer was in one of the markets that was hit most. So yeah, can you please reduce the budget something like 80%? And so we were exactly here, fighting for survival. And but it was not fear. It was actually interesting for us because we, of course, had the fear for everything that was happening outside. As a company, we were getting back in startup mode. I mean, the company is 10 years old, so 11. And we were just kind of getting established, getting good at what we were doing. And no, this is where we needed to start reinventing things. And doing was not an issue, but understanding what to do was a real challenge. So what did we do? We did that we were relatively good at. We started building models together, but remotely. And the thing that we started that we needed to learn was all the part that has to do with the decision making. And in terms of hardware, we already had everything, but one of the things that was making the difference was, this stand-up desk. As you see, I'm probably moving a lot already. I can't help it, I'm sorry. Playing with tools like remote model, like Mirror Mural, working on meeting format, preparing boards, and so on, started being our common activity. And what we've done was redesigning existing flow because we need to find a way to deliver trainings Yeah, remotely. And of course, it's not, you don't need the genius to tell you, well, why don't you do it remotely? But then you open the box and you realize, oh, what do you mean for remotely? Do you mean like in-person interaction? Do you mean videos recorded? What is the format? There's so much variability in this space, and we needed to start experimenting. We also envisioned new businesses. We started being a book publisher in the process because, yes, we liked mixing things and starting other ideas. We actually had to look about all the ecosystem that we actually took for granted, and then you realize, wow, a lot of what we took for granted is not there anymore. Like there's a lot of networking happening in person in conferences, and in remote conferences, well, the networking is one of the things which is, yeah, harder to make it happen. So we have to redesign an ecosystem, maybe the ecosystem we wanted, maybe the emerging ecosystem, and we need to see what was the best strategy for us to play, betting on different areas, because there were holes and gaps in the ecosystem that were not happening. So we had to fill them by ourselves. Okay, we basically needed to redesign every single way we deliver value on trainings, on consulting, on helping trainers to design the trainers, or supporting customers. Everything needed to be redesigned. Okay. No problem. We started playing experiments. We had a variety of ideas, probably more ideas that we could ever deliver. And these models, this idea gave us a strategy, gave us priority, gave us a direction. And then, of course, we started playing all the experiments needed. And long story short, most of them actually worked. So public trainings is now expanding, private trainings more. And with new products and format and more ideas coming, all of this is green. I'm not saying that every single experiment was a great idea. We actually had our failures and bumps and drawbacks, but the net result of this massive experimentation, because of crisis and deep need, was this one. So I should probably stop the talk here and pretend I'm a hero, but we're all survivors. If you're here watching this conference, you survive too. So this is just the story of somebody being lucky in the process, but maybe there's something interesting in what happens next. So the thing that was starting to hit us in the process, the moment the business started to run again, we realized the actual price. And most of the price has to do with what happened in the way we were working, and the thing that was messing up with all the variables was the availability of free time. Business as usual was down. We had free time. Every employee was there, even if there was not so much to do. That's not the normal state of the company. It was a temporary luxury. Maybe we should have more of this, but yeah, that was making a few things possible. But then later we realized that the consequences of the pandemic hit the brain of the organization. First thing, like, yeah, Alberto, those long strategy meetings were great. Can we please have them shorter? Just like it was really, really hard. And that was great. And but that was not a big issue. I mean, it was an issue in other days, but we were compensating the brain fatigue in a long workshop with the emotional bonding of, okay, it's great, we're tired, let's go and have dinner together or have a drink or something. Team spirit, that was great. But office and travel for an organization like ours, those little office time, those venues, those moments that we spent together were the moments where we were thinking together and where we were established the team building. So this is a picture of the office, and this is probably the cleanest part of the office, because I'm just putting stickies, well, even behind me, you can see them. That's the way we think. Our office space was optimized for thinking, not for doing. For doing, home is actually better. But we started to pay the price of Zoom fatigue. And what is Zoom fatigue? It's not, I mean, I can have a more specific definition that has to do with thinking fast and slow. I assume that most of the audience for a conference like this already knows about this book. It has been a game changer for a few years now. But my definition of Zoom fatigue is the result of a continuously turning system one, the cheap part of our brain that could handle normal conversation, into exhausting system two ones. I can give you an example. Like you're talking with somebody on a Zoom call, and this person is not exactly looking at you. Maybe the camera is just put somewhere there, and then this person is standing like me, and you're sitting. And in the real world, the conversation between a person sitting and a person standing nearby, looking to another point and not looking at this person directly, is a strong way to make you feel guilty. And that's not what people want to do when they have the camera on a different direction. They don't want to make you feel guilty. Maybe a couple of persons on the planet might use this technique, but it's not intentional. And then your brain is compensating. Like, why am I feeling guilty? Oh, because this person is just looking elsewhere. It doesn't want to punish me. And so you're compensating, and you're overthinking, and this overthinking is just depleting your brain energy. And the overall effect of the tech stack has been horrible for us in these years, and more than we would like to admit. But the annoying thing, especially in this combination of bad microphone, low internet speed, no double screen, bad microphone, you hear a cracking sound. Every time a person is speaking with the video off. So there is a voice from the dark with the cracking sound. Every single time this person is speaking, you're just like getting there. And you can see your face getting not so friendly in the process. And you label this person as annoying. Part of your brain will, even if this person is nice, just a human being with a bad microphone. But I mean, this cracking sound continuously. Oh. And then that's Zoom fatigue on everybody, on the brain, compensation, but also emotional. I realized that most of the time I was feeling ending a meeting with the person that was continuous. Every single time this person was speaking was generating brain pain in my decoding ability. I didn't like this person. I don't even know what is the face of this person. I just don't like this person. And I'm not such a horrible person. I usually like human beings as an average, but now my average move like, I actually don't like them. And so the actual result is we found ourselves depleted, but we also realized that our brain energy was now the dominant currency in the organization. So whatever we were doing, we were trying to optimize our agenda, the time, the meetings fit, everything. And then, I mean, we cannot be there all the time. And being in a meeting, when your brain is depleted, it's just going to make you feel worse. But maybe you're not deciding, you're not taking notes, you're forgetting stuff. The real currency, which is really important for us in the organization, is brain energy. It's not even time. It's your ability to understand, to contribute to the discussion. One more thing here, which is actually relevant. The hardware stack matters. If there is one thing that made a huge difference, was the stand-up desk. Like, it's going to make you feel like dizzy looking at me, but this is a talk, and I need a little bit more energy. But tech stack is making a difference. Talking about remote empathy, we tried to play with some solution, but some of them were actually disturbing, like video calls are making me hate the human race. That's a decent summary. And somebody told me that we should have more video calls to replace spontaneous conversation and increase empathy. And I was, no, please, not that. The problem is that too many video calls. Is there any way to have empathy not passing through the video calls? And we had one. That was those meetings. There was hybrid days where we could actually see each other. And then the final hammer was the fact that our saviors for the remote working, well, looks like they had troubles too. And maybe it's not troubles, maybe it's just a step in evolution, maybe there's nothing wrong, but we actually felt a little bit lost 1 week ago when, the whole thing kind of exploded in Basecamp headquarters. Other thing that we were losing in the process. What is corporate loyalty? What is actually a company if all you're doing, You're not getting in the building. You're not sitting in the rooms. You're not in the bars nearby in the breaks. You're not feeling proud of working in Wall Street remotely. It just feels weird. And moving from company A to company B, it's just mostly changing the tech stack, moving from Zoom to Microsoft Teams or Google Meet, moving from Trello to Jira. And after a while, what is actually belonging? What is the thing that is keeping us together? It is fear of change, because that's going to be the new status quo. That's going to be pretty weak. And the other thing that we started to miss, what is actually the culture? I mean, there's a lot of things that has to do with imitation, visibility of given behavior. Now, the behavior are not exactly visible, so that became really, really tricky. Still, we wanted to change things. We wanted to keep evolving, and making decision was taking more and more time, because of Zoom fatigue. Can we split it in more meetings? Can we just do it on a longer time? And then the calendar started to be more filled up, and then we got in the temptation of okay, I can decide by myself. I have this whole office, which is my private thinking space, and I can envision the strategy. But yes, even if individual decisions are faster, they might not be working, because what's the buy-in? What is the involvement of the people? There's a person that I haven't seen in months, which is deciding something. Is this my company? I'm just tethered to a very, very long cable to this organization. Doesn't feel like mine. So I think that the way to rebuild a glue inside this organization has to do with the original setting. Be in this together. Once again, we still have to be all the key people in the same virtual room, at least for some of the key decisions. We still have to build models for the context, for every strategic decision. I don't want to be alone making decisions which are affecting the life of other colleagues, even if they're just like small things, but this small thing might be the only thing that we have. And building models together, making the context of our strategic decision visible, is the way to reach some kind of consensus before the execution. Even more, that's something that I found really useful in the process, was being able to share my decision-making strategy. So let's say if you are in a management role, you're supposed to provide some guidance, some decision. And one of the best way to do is, for me, is just like, I'm gonna make all of my strategy visible. These are the information that I'm looking at. These are the weak signals coming from the outside. I am combining this information with this theory and this approach. That's why I'm deciding. And be ready to be challenged, because somebody else in the organization might have a different value system, and that might actually be great. You both could learn something in the process. Make your decision collaborative. You're not owning the decision. The team might be owning this, but make the team able to take this decision at best, also without you. This is where you can move to another position. Make the decision obvious. Provide so much data that, given the information and the culture and the context, okay, that's what I would do too. So you're not gonna feel guilty for a bad decision, because it might look like great in the moment and completely stupid in retrospective. But this is what I see. Okay, I would take the same decision too. That really helps in longer term, and also handling mistake. To put it more explicitly, I'm saying the same thing again, but visualize the context necessary to make the decision obvious. And I know the pressure. It's just like, we know we are pretty good, remote or not remote. We know how to play execution, but the sense making, the strategic decision making, this is something that really needs to be worked out, and there are no shortcuts. So it is true we need shorter Zoom meetings, but we still need some background to decide. We still need to build the background for this. So sometimes, okay, we have the constraint of Zoom meeting is coming from physiology, no way out. We're still managing our brain energy. It gets like, okay, so we need to design a path for taking this decision. Exploration, mixing up things, and then taking a decision. And as a result, we'll be growing decision makers and possibly reusable models for the next strategic decision. The first time we have to build them from scratch. Later, okay, that's information we were looking at. 80% is going to be the same. New signals will deserve a seat in the discussion. And we will own the consequences as a team. So to close up, my genius prophecy is the future is going to be hybrid, Captain Obvious. But in both scenarios, we still need to build collaboratively the key model for strategy, for kicking off changes, for envisioning the necessary evolution. We still need them. Some companies might need to regroup and still have places where this discussion is happening. For other companies, we might still think about doing our strategic decision making in a sequence of steps, maybe in different meetings, maybe in one large one, maybe remotely, maybe locally. That's up to you. We still need this modeling to enable this flexibility. If we're doing it online, asynchronous contribution are welcome. It's not forced group thinking. We know that we need individual space and group space. So we might have a combination of tools to enable this asynchronous contribution, growth, mindsetting, and then, getting to a place where, consensus is already achieved before the ratification. It might take a longer time, but is actually great in the outcome. A transparent organization is a lot easier to change. That's what I wanted to say, and thank you for being here.
So we're back live with you, Alberto Brandolini. It's a real pleasure to have you for this event. Real pleasure. Honestly, I'm going to start with a fail, my personal fail, because sometimes in companies the business and the IT are not really aligned. So in some case, it can be a sort of fighting between those two departments and those two kind of people. So organizing an EventStorming with people that do not like each other can switch from a Cold War to a hot war. And in an EventStorming that I facilitated, it ends with a global fighting in the room. So everyone was in the room, but it was a global fighting. Do you have any sanity check that we could implement before organizing an EventStorming?
Oh, not really. Actually, it depends. Let's say I'm envious. I really would have liked to be there because there might be good reasons. But actually, usually the invitation is already a type of sanity check. You will have some objection before starting. Or you might get a peek into everybody's psychology. But it's also interesting, sometimes you just need a way to open the dances, open the conversation. So let's admit that we are in a state of crisis. Let's not pretend that we are friends. We've been taking 3 years of bad requirements, and you have been taking 3 years of late deliveries, and this is not exactly working. But the thing for me is I cannot make so much of a sanity check because I am in the external element in the discussion, and especially for existing organization, the friction might be existing way long before me. And so I can say something like, are you ready to a roller coaster? We're going to talk about tough things, and then we handle this. I honestly have no idea about what could happen in this workshop. I had a very good workshop where I could see people opening their heart and turning the company in best possible direction, because that became the obvious thing to do. And I've also seen some really dysfunctional companies where the workshop turned into an alpha male power display, and we just realized, like, I don't really work with you. I don't really want to work with you. And this is part of the assessment. And okay, so we have a company which is highly dysfunctional with this and this and this problem. Yeah, and we got all this crucial information before the project started, so it feels kind of safe. So but then I guess there are tons of NDA on this, and I don't want to really peek into this. But then I'm curious. Like, we had some bumpy discussion, but we could rationalize that. So let me finish only with one thing. Ideally, the companies should be going in the same direction. I mean, there might be a vision, an alignment, or some common denominator. If the workshop becomes a fight, is usually because this is lacking, or because there are crucial rivalries playing in the background. So if there is one thing that I say before the workshop is something like, well, if you have management by objectives, individual bonuses into conflicting direction, be ready to some roller coaster, because usually this is the hidden fuel of the downstream fight.
Okay, I got a few questions related to what your talk concerning EventStorming and the remote way of working. Let me ask you two of them, and you decide on which you want to answer. The first one from Edwidge: do you think that it's still possible to have an EventStorming via those tools, Miro, Mural, or it is a solution anymore based on the context? And the other one was, do you miss EventStorming with people in the same room with real post-it, Alberto?
So the second is easy. Of course I do. I miss human beings. We do have fun. It's not always a fight. We laugh together. We have a drink after the workshop together with some people. The human part of the workshop, the patting on somebody's shoulders, is gone. Do I miss it? Of course I do. So I'm just,
you just praised your wall.
having some good moments with my stickies. But on the first one, the answer is yes, we had to. We spent the entire year doing a remote workshop. Are they the same? Well, it totally depends on the type of workshop we want to achieve. In terms of software design, yes, we could get into a pretty good productivity level. In terms of steering companies into a different direction, the friction that we were paying is we were losing the luxury of the full immersion. Actually, the thing that in every single meeting, not only my workshop, we lost in this pandemic year, was the ability to be in a shared space with focus for a long time with our collaborators. So can we have a really efficient 2-hour session for designing maybe a piece of a subsystem? Absolutely yes. It takes some mastery with the tools, and you can make these things happen. Can we get to a point where 30 people are aligned, thinking about the same thing, redesigning the strategy of a company? That's a lot harder. So we lost a lot of things in terms of ability to quickly change something in a single workshop. On the other hand, the alternative was even worse. So every single company was locked in during this year. Like they couldn't have meetings the old way, and the traditional dysfunctional in-person meeting was turned into a new type of dysfunctional meeting on Zoom, and that was the thing that we have to compete with against. Sorry, and well, can we do better than the dysfunctional meeting on Zoom? Totally yes. So that was the obvious solution. We had the luxury and the time and the need to reframe our thinking. We had to split it in different moments. The thing that we think we might be losing is, the empathy needed to be in the same place together. The moment of reckoning, the moment you look in to other people in their eyes, and you realize, okay, this is clearly the right thing to do.
Okay.
And that's not recovered. In terms of design speed, we can still do it.
You're famous for this quote. I don't know if it's from you, but the business don't know the business. They know their business department, which is not exactly the same. And this is something that we can see during EventStorming when we ask business people, what are the business rules? They have no precise ideas or what are the business rules. So how do the business people react when you told them, you don't know your business? I'm sure
I never tell.
Yeah.
I never tell this. I know this. I can make the silent bet on this. That was not even my assumption at the beginning. The whole exploration of the business domain at the beginning started in the presumption like that business people are the expert, the software team are the eager learner in the problem domain. So we would like to be in the same room so that we can understand the domain as quickly as possible. And but by doing this, we realized that we were discovering things that the business didn't know. And of course, the business never admits, unless your expert has been hired 2 weeks ago, they never said like, oh, I don't really know my job. I've been doing it for 20 years, but I never really understood the details. And maybe it's not even that deep. Maybe something like, I know very well what happens in my department. I have full responsibility and accountability for this, but I don't know exactly what happens when the responsibility shifts to the second place in line. And the larger the company, the lower the visibility about what happens to the next step. We might trust the other persons, the next department, but we might not know exactly what happens in this department. And we just had a meeting yesterday, and the common action, I mean, I'm Italian, will wave my hands, but the operation that you do is this, opening the box and finally, oh, is this the way you're doing things in this department? Because officially, that's the way it works. And then if you start looking deeper, you realize, oh, you have a weird way of structuring things. Why do you do this? Why do you do this instead? It always worked, or there was always an emergency somewhere else, and we never had the time to look into this box. And this is happening really frequently, maybe even accelerated by EventStorming, because we look at what is the bottleneck in the whole flow. We try to design a solution for this part, and the moment we solve this area, suddenly the bottleneck shifts to another area that has been left untouched for 15 years because the problem was always downstream. And then, okay, let's look at this. Oh, why do you do this? And then we never realized that we could have done a lot better, and we just had the attention somewhere else.
Okay. We have 5 minutes left. Maybe this question, in your talk, you're talking about transparent organization. Do you think that working right now and as a matter of priority on transforming our organization is into transparent organization is a must, or can it be done as we go along and as we go?
I think it's kind of necessary, especially if companies we will settle into something hybrid. I'm very serious about this sense of belonging to a company. I will stay in a company as long as I can affect the strategic decision. Like they are going where I want to go or where I believe it's right to go. And this might not be happening if all I get is a PowerPoint explaining to me the company strategy that has been decided by person I never met, not even in the hallway, not even in the corridor. Are they real? I think we need some way to rebuild cohesion inside an organization. And I suspect for some companies it was kind of fear in the process. I'm not switching job in a year like this, but in the longer term, people want to be part of the decision, want to feel part of the company direction, and we need to build a way for this. And I think transparency, but also intelligibility are my two favorite weapons.
Maybe last question, we have a couple of minutes. Do you think that remote working slow the process of taking strategic decision even if certain company grows a lot during the pandemic? So I think it's also referred to the oral versus written culture concerning taking decision and the asynchronous aspect of the question.
I think yes. I think that's after getting rid of the fluctuations of the emergency, I think the new status quo is we need to take collaborative decision, but this needs time, and this time has become a little bit of a luxury. Well, actually not exactly time, active brain time, attention, and Zoom fatigue could be, I mean, that's a shortcut name, but could be our biggest enemy. Like the most annoying feeling that we had, that was we need to take a big decision. We need to build the context to make everybody aware of the consequences and of the data which is around this decision, and getting there took time. Oh, by the way, time for a coffee break. And you can see all of this context evaporating, and then another meeting rebuilding the context, and the actual decision might not be happening because of the extra constraints that we're having. So I think we are just actually starting to see the overall consequences of this forced remotization. The beginning was just like fixing an emergency, and now is designing organization for the new status quo, whatever the status quo might be. Maybe re-getting into a balance of remote plus gatherings, or maybe building new tools and new strategies for complex decisions.
Okay, thank you very much. We're running out of time. It was a real pleasure to have you, Alberto, for this short, unfortunately too short Q&A session. Please do not hesitate to contact Alberto. I do think he's a real game changer in the way we are working and designing our system. It was a real pleasure to have your feedback on the way we work. Have a nice day, Alberto, and good luck.
Have a nice day.
And good luck for the championship. Goodbye.
Thank you very much. Liar.